Hello everyone, hope you're doing well. It's time for, I suppose, what would be classed as a minor update in War Thunder. We have the French naval going into OBT, with also a new cruiser. We have a bunch of map changes, and also, of course, the summer extreme event starting today. So, a bunch of stuff going on, so let's cover it in this video. Starting off with, of course, the French naval CBT. The CBT is now over, so everybody gets access to the French naval vehicles. Just as a general idea, so I kind of ground out rank 1, 2, and 3 of the French naval stuff and spaded all the vehicles. I gave my thoughts in separate videos about them, but the main thing to understand is it's pretty fun. You know, it's a set of vehicles which have quite large caliber guns, especially on the destroyers, and the main thing is their AP has ridiculous amounts of explosive filler. So this makes them really fun to play. Even though their turrets are pretty slow, everything else about them is quite nice. So I would actually massively recommend them if you haven't given them a go. Maybe grind them out during the Summer Extreme event so you can get some stuff done with them. Also at the same time, they brought along the Dupleix, or the Dupleix, or however you want to call it. This vehicle is coming in as a rank 4 premium for France. There's a Dupleix pack. Basically, you can get it, 2,000 Golden Eagles, and also 30 days of premium accounts. That will sit you back 55 USD or $70 Canadian. Now, this vehicle is okay. We looked at it yesterday in a video if you want to see the full setup. It has the good old guns, the 203mm, which you will have seen many times from many different vehicles, and also it has a little bit of a secondary armament in the form of 90s and also some secondaries. It does have okay armor in certain areas of it, especially in the center, and it does have coal bunkers which do protect its center too. The main reason why you pick something like this up is its survivability, because its guns are okay compared to other vehicles, and at 5.7 there are definitely vehicles that have much more armaments than it. So we'll have to see how that goes. As I said, what really matters about this thing is its survivability and how it does, if it's able to get ammo racked as easily as some of the other French ships or not. But the main thing is the good old French CBT is over, and also this vehicle is available. There does have like a history section attached to it if you want to, but basically when the ship was built under a 1925 program, and by the beginning of the Second World War, it had two sister ships, the Colbert and also the Foch. They served in the 1st Cruiser Division of the 3rd Squadron of the Mediterranean Fleet, and before the occupation of France, took part in the search for the pocket battleship, of course, the Admiral Grafspee, and capture of Santa Fe vessel, as well as the raid on Genoa. But it came under the control of the Vichy government when France was lost, and then was scuttled in 1942. And then after the peace of the Compiègne was signed, the remains of the cruiser were drowned by the Allies in 44. So not a great end, but at the same time, not too bad. For some reason, it's at 5.7. I think this thing could easily fit at 5.3, especially since when you look at other vehicles which are similar to it, like the Trento, they are at 5.3. The next part is they have been following the roadmap, which this time means that they've been changing a ton of maps all at once. It is kind of interesting that for many years, a ton of people have asked for a bunch of different changes to maps, but it was seen as something that was a little bit maybe too hard to do. But now we just have a ton at once, trying to improve a bunch of them. So obviously it can be done over a few months period if we are to believe that everything like this was just spontaneous and definitely happened overnight and changed their plans completely based on a reaction. Who knows? We'll have to see what goes on. So a bunch of maps have changed their positions, they've changed how stuff works, and hopefully have made stuff better. We'll only see through kind of playing them and going through them, and that's what I'll do over the next few days, especially in the Summer Extreme event. Still no sign of a few of the older maps that were removed, including White Rock Castle, but maybe we'll see those in the future. The first one that they've changed is Vietnam. So around the A point, so basically in the north, they have removed all of the water, which is a good idea. The funny thing is, They say the actual place itself looks more contrasted, and it also makes your eyes feel more comfortable. They've also improved the mini-map on it as well. What they've also done is made a lot of the trees a lot smaller, which actually helps quite a lot, because it means that they don't block so much view, and instead will just cover specific areas. Now, they've also changed some of the landscape itself, so they haven't just kept it all exactly the same. They have moved some things or made certain rocks smaller or certain rocks bigger, so that's, you know, kind of a thing that's gone on as well. I think overall this is good. If you remember the state that Vietnam was in when it first came out, where it literally had just holes of water that you could just fall into and you would just die. They got rid of those after maybe like a month, and the reason for this is because, well, people would just turn up and want to flank areas, try and go in the water, and then just end up just committing seppuku. It didn't make any sense. And also on the map, there was huge ridges that people could just sit on and then just kind of overlook the whole map and just annihilate people from. It was not a good map to start with, and they're really trying to make it work. You know, it's like Fetch out of Mean Girls. Stop trying to make it work. Like, you could try over and over again, but I suppose it's still better than Surroundings of Volatile Lamps, so at least there's that. This is a positive change, though. Like, I know I'm bad-mouthing the map itself, but this is a positive one. It means that mobility will be a little bit easier around that A point, and therefore, you know, the large map won't be as slow as it was previously, so hopefully that will be less people just sitting on corners waiting for people to push, and them actually pushing themselves. Eastern Europe has also got some changes. So it has a lot new natural shelters on it, and also landscape changes, which means moving between capture points will be much more secure, and these changes have mainly affected the suburbs. The city is still recognizable to those familiar with it. So what they've done is they've kind of cursed it by just adding random stuff around the place, so you have unnatural/natural progression to the center part, which is completely fine. You know, breaking up lines of sight is a very good idea. The main issue with Eastern Europe is not any of that, though. The main issue with Eastern Europe is the main issue with a lot of these types of maps. It's actually the difference in contours, the fact that you have a valley set up in the center of the map, therefore both sides can shoot into the valley. That has always been a problem, and that's why you can shoot spawn to spawn in many of the different positions. A lot of the maps in-game which have problems have that contour. They have a valley setup. If you think about like 38th parallel for an idea, it's exactly the same thing. It makes it very hard to move in the kind of like straight setup, and instead what ends up happening is a lot of people just get sniped before they even get to the central position, because once again everybody's looking down into it, and it's a lot easier to look down a hill and take up a defensive position than it is to look up a hill and take a defensive position or a flat plane, because you won't be able to arc over. El Alamein has also been improved. The effective positions on the tops of mountains, as well as several zones, have been corrected that were unavailable in the SB version of the map. Fair enough. I mean, I don't know how many times I've played on the SB version, but also I'm guessing what they've done is they've removed those positions in like the northern area of El Alamein, because those were obviously issues. They were places where you could spawn camp from, both sides, by the way, so hopefully they haven't done what they did with Middle East, where they only nuked one side of the map. Hopefully they've nuked both sides of the map, so therefore you can't spawn camp on either side, but we'll have to see if that's the case. El Alamein did need some changes, because of, once again, the height level on the different points. The fact that you can take one point and basically just take over the rest of the map is something that was an issue. Jungle as well, they've thinned down a bit, so the battling of the map doesn't turn into a tedious round of looking for a moving bush. We also block some known passengers outside the playable map zone. What? Jungle was never just a tedious round of looking for a moving bush. Like, what are you talking about? That was actually one of the maps which had one of the most flows to it, because you have multiple ways that you can actually attack it. At the start, you can go through the center. You can actually fight on that ridge, and you can fight north to south or south to north. You can go along the bridge flank if you want to, or sorry, along the beach flank and fight into that jungle from both sides if you wanted. And then in the south of the map, you had the roads which you could fight on as well. Why do you need to thin that down? They've really got to get out of this mentality and stop listening to the people who think that basically corridoring off certain maps is a positive idea. I understand that people get annoyed because sometimes flanks are missed and people just get around the side of the enemy and then kill everybody, but understand that the opposite is even worse, which is basically two sides staring at each other, waiting for things to happen, because a lot of vehicles can't take hits and a lot of people know weak spots. That's probably why they made all of these heavy tanks stay at their BRs while everything else went up, to try and get people to move more on these maps, but it's just not going to work. Oh boy. Yeah, so I really don't like this idea of just thinning down maps. As one of the big things that has to be understood about not just the way that I play, but the way that I know a lot of others play, including the people around me, we live in areas of the world which don't have good ping. And when I end up on stuff like EU servers, I have 160 to 180 ping. So if you put me on a streamlined map, and if you put me in a place where basically I have to force people out of places to be able to push forward, what that means is I have to take a fight where I just cannot win, because the other person usually has much better ping than I do, so therefore can react a lot quicker, and I can't do anything. So one-on-one duels, I have to outplay my opponent in different ways, whether it be angles, whether it be, moving in different areas, and therefore, it's a lot easier for the other person to not have to do any of those things. Which is why, hey, guess what? If you have, less than 20 ping in War Thunder, it's super easy to play the game. But most people don't, because the server clusters are not all over the place, right? Especially in certain areas of the world. So it can be a bit of a rough one. And changes like this make that worse. And also, changes like this make CAS way worse, because now people are going to be way more bunched up than they were before. So look forward to everybody complaining even more about CAS compared to what we saw earlier. Also, one death isn't a problem in most of the game modes within the game, although this can't be said about death instantly upon respawn. Of course, if the enemy team honestly pushed through your defense and reached your respawn point, the situation is a bit different. We're correcting obvious positions which can get on the nerves of the enemy, even at the very beginning of the battle. That's completely fine. I'm fine with them doing that. Also, understand that it is up to the player to be able to counter those positions. We cannot, as always, we cannot just baby players. Players have to learn how to bridge gaps in their defenses between different teammates. They have to be able to read the map. We cannot baby people, because if you baby them up to a point, the game becomes very dumbed down to play, which is right now what's going on. And that just makes everything so much more boring to play. Less tactics, less ideas, just smash face, see what happens. Then on Normandy, they block the ability to shoot from respawn to respawn from the edges of the play area. This has been one of the maps where the problem was particularly obvious. Yeah, because for some reason you left just the whole south open, and just one road in the south which people take. And it was nowhere near any of the objectives. It made absolutely no sense why people would actually go that way. Why people wouldn't go that way, because they could just flank around the whole map and then just hit either spawn. That's been like that for 5 or 6 years, by the way. Then you've got Stalingrad, but on this map it was less obvious when it comes to the affected problem. On this map we've also blocked such slots. I mean, fair enough. The main issue with these things is it just depends on who's advising them on these spots. Usually the people they go to when it comes to advising them on these spots are exactly the people you don't want to go to who are advising them. And then Alaska, you used to have to drive up a wooded mountain to reach a similar position. Not anymore. The drive has been blocked. God. And then Maginot has also been criticized by you. Oh, yeah. We made reliable protection for respawn zones for this location as well. Grand. And you also made it smaller so you can't flank. Which is a fair point in the north, because literally you could just spawn camp in the first 20 seconds of the game, but in the south, not so much. Landscape design, they also say, we're regularly making small tweaks to locations. The most attentive of you have noticed that your favorite positions after the update may have changed, such as a moved bush or a tree may have grown in the new place. Yep, you're trying to soft change matches. That's completely fine. There was a house close to the spawn point in Iberian Fortress that, according to our analysis, made for an exceptionally effective position for one team within the match. We've removed the house, so that there is now one less point on the map from which a shell can fly towards you unexpectedly. How about you just... one thing I would really like is I would really enjoy these heat maps that you guys keep talking about. You know, the heat maps that tell you where everybody goes. Show me some of those. Just show me them. I want to see. I would love to see just a few examples of these heat maps. So then you could back up what's being said. Because a lot of the ways that I play the game, and a lot of the ways I know experienced players play the game are completely different to each other based on their objective. So if you are focusing on what the majority is doing and how they are playing the game, that's going to end up in a pretty sad state. But also, if you only listen to a vocal minority, that is also going to end up in a pretty sad state. So I just would like to see some of the kind of heat map stuff that they've talked about. They've also changed Seversk for some reason. So they've towed some police cars that posed a problem even after being destroyed. They left behind an invisible collision model which shells hit. Well, fair enough then. And on Jungle, which we told you about in the beginning of the blog, has had similar small changes, also worked on the shade of vegetation. And then also they changed Sun City. So the architecture of the whole city has changed noticeably. Objects, buildings, and the environment as a whole have become more diverse and modern. Oh, well, that's fantastic. You know, that's what we need. We need everything to look prettier, not for it to actually function. But at least it looks nice, you know. The summer updates, this was the one that I was dreading the most. Still waiting for all of the RP changes, by the way. We are getting to a point where we are running out of summer. There's only a few weeks left, and it's funny that those are the ones which they have waited the longest to put in. Also the dynamic repair cost reduction and the capture point reward, plus the helicopter research progression by playing ground vehicles. All of the ones which relate to research points they haven't put in yet. They've done the matchmaking ones, the SL ones, some of the location ones, and all of that. They've even done stuff from the early autumn 2023 setup. Just haven't done any of the RP stuff. Weird how that works. But at the same time, you know, the main thing is all these changes, some of them sound positive, some of them sound negative. We're just going to have to see what goes forward with all of these things, right? Like it's just one of those things that's just going to take experience and how everything's played, and then we can kind of work out from there how it all works. They also had a changelog which went along with it, so attempts to attack allied ground vehicles from aircraft in ground AB now scores in the automatic punishment program to determine whether a player should be banned or kicked from a session. At the same time, damage to allies is still not applied. Similar mechanics have been worked on in aircraft AB for a lengthy period, so there you go. Private messages after a battle ends now contain detailed reward information for hits to allies and bonus rewards for results on the mission, which is nice. Hopefully they can bump up the service record in the same way. When activating a tradable coupon for a vehicle, the player now receives backups for it along with the vehicle. The number of backups depends on the rank of the vehicle, which is quite nice. And also data cards on market vehicles now contain their status as premium or event vehicles, their ranks, as well as the number of gift backups for activating the coupon. Vehicle status and its rank can now be used as keywords to search for vehicles in the search menu. And of course, the French Navy is available for everybody. The Dupleix heavy cruiser has been added to French Blue Water. The CV90-105 CTCV 105 HP, now that gets the ATGM Phalaric 105, which we talked about the last video. And then also the Saeta P494, a bug has been fixed which prevented the blue camo from being applied. So, a bunch of stuff going on. We'll have to see how the map changes go, and also, at the same time, good luck with the event. Let's get into it. I'd just like to thank Brendan Quinn, Vilneus, Character Fuel, Juan the Panda, Carrion Crow, Gus Irenicus, Pyman, Merciless Reaper, Orange Tail, Teddy, Daniel Stanton, Moxie, B. Young, Bareen, Peter Grayling, Alan Hacker, Sem Alslan, Uncle Bean, and Derek R, and also Lafouche for supporting the channel.